satellite secret national security.
The empire of the senseless.
Turning journalists into heroes takes some doing.
The empire of the senseless.
Boring Ollie North down in the subway, dealing drugs and guns.
The Mekons are an art collective / punk band formed in Leeds in 1976 and are still going. When they started, they were part of a melting pot of musicians at Leeds, which also produced the Gang of Four and Delta 5. I've heard of Gang of Four, I've not heard of Delta 5. And they started out with the participation ethos in that the audience could get up on stage and join in with the band, and they were swapping instruments around and all sorts of stuff. They did settle down, and by the 80s, they were more stabilised, and they started branching out into other musical styles as well. They have released, as far as I could count, an eye-watering 25 albums so far. Hi, my name's Dan, and this is a review of the Mekons Rock and Roll by the Mekons, which was their 8th studio album. And this has been described by people as post-punk, and I don't have any solid reason for disagreeing with that. So a few reviews ago, I did a review of Throwing Muses by Throwing Muses, and was quite confident in saying, yes, this is post-punk, and this is why. With this, I feel less confident about that, but I can see the kind of musical connections between the two. That doesn't mean anything to you if you don't know Throwing Muses or haven't heard this album either, I guess. Let me try and dig into what I mean by that by just describing the music on this album somewhat. So it's kind of fairly immediate rock, by which I mean it's quite straightforward. It's easy to pick up in your mind. It's got a kind of DIY feel like punk does. It's got some energy. It's fairly musically simple. In fact, on this album, I would say it feels deliberately simple, as if it's doing it to make a point or as part of their the aesthetic that they're going for. Occasionally there's elements of noise or discordant stuff, particularly in guitars, not a lot. Occasionally there's kind of folk stuff going on. Mostly this is because they've got a violin and accordion as part of the band, which they use, which then give that kind of folky side to it. And then occasionally there's kind of analog synthy stuff, which is kind of gives that kind of tiny elements of space rock in here of that. But the rest of it just doesn't have a space rock feel of that kind of expansive soundscapey thing. This is kind of the tight songs. Sometimes it's quite full, sometimes it sounds fairly loose. By that I mean that the timing of how they play the instruments together isn't that kind of tight. And that's not meant as a criticism, because looseness and tightness both can work in different settings. Musically, I would say it actually feels quite optimistic. Not kind of mega jolly, but fairly kind of straightforwardly, simple and just doing the job, but also, slightly happy. Until we start getting into the words, which we'll do in a minute or two. So we've got vocals by, I believe, Tom Greenhalgh, who was the kind of mainstay of the band, and Sally Timms. So I've worked that out by deduction, not by looking at a list on Wikipedia, which what I'm usually able to do is to look at a list of who played what and who did what. And that isn't the case here because it doesn't tell you. But I've worked out from band history that the female singing on here probably is Sally Timms. Okay. So Tom sounds like a cross between, I'm sorry if you don't know the references, Billy Bragg, Jarvis Cocker and Morrissey. Okay, that's a weird combination. It's got a voice that gives a feeling of working class gravitas, which I didn't realise when I wrote it down rhymes. Working class gravitas. It's kind of, pay attention to me because I'm working class kind of thing. Sally Timms has, obviously, a female voice. It's got a feeling of studied naivety. It reminds me of somebody, but I'm not quite sure who. I get a lot, I'm afraid, especially since I am, speed dating these albums at such a rate. Often there's something that reminds me of something, but I have no idea what it was. Kirsty McCall maybe comes to mind, but I don't think it's quite right. Don't know. Both of them work quite well. So the lyrics are generally sort of in contrast to this kind of slightly happy feel of the music. The lyrics are quite dark, although quite humorously dark, by which I mean dark humour, which isn't actually, maybe that's not quite the same thing. So you've got stuff about vampires and blood and drugs and insanity and sorts of fairly dark stuff going on here. Interestingly, I found that I noticed that quite a lot of the lyrics are done in such a way that doesn't rhyme and doesn't have regular scansion to the lines, so the rhythmic, how many syllables you put in a line isn't the same across all lines, which gives it a slightly off kilter feel. Again, it feels like this is a deliberate thing as part of the aesthetic of the whole thing. So, having just mentioned that aesthetic, I think I like it. I think it works. It's got this kind of slightly jolly, slightly naive feel to the music, and then these dark lyrics, which gives it a kind of sarcasm to it, the whole thing. But it's certainly a nice juxtaposition. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it worked well. Think it might be a bit. I don't know if it's the sort of thing that Brits are gonna like more than people from other parts of the world. So if you are from elsewhere, which most of the people watching my videos are, I believe, and you like this, then please do let me know and overturn my preconceptions here. I do wonder if this doesn't work as well if the lyrics don't have this darkness to them. Um, but, it does, so I can't tell. So anyway, overall, that's what I think of this album. I quite liked it, in fact, more than quite liked it. Quite a strong liking. I'd love to know what you think, so please do let me know by leaving me a comment. And that's it from me for now.
Did you ever hear about Cocaine Lil? She lived in Cocaine Town on a cocaine